it's
Okay,
nicer when it's kind of just more casual and laid back. So, yeah,
for sure.
Adam, thank you for your time again today. So what we're going to do is just quickly get you to introduce who you are and what you do.
Yeah, no problem. So my name is Adam Feller. I own Avidity Creative. You can kind of see on the shirt here, but so I do branding and design work, specializing in the packaged food and beverage industry. So we do a lot of helping people get their products into stores and then selling more once they're actually on the shelves.
Nice. So take me through, you've been in the program for a little while now. So take me through, if you can remember, like where you were in your design business before you came into Profitable Designer.
Yeah. So I started about almost exactly a year ago now. And before I started the program with Patrick, I was kind of not really knowing where my next project was going to come from. I had a lot of word of mouth referrals, but it was not predictable. My projects were generally smaller. My pricing was pretty low compared to other designers who are doing what I was doing. Um, and my clients were kind of all over the board as far as like what they were needing, and I was not really much of an expert in any of those areas. I was just good at design, and that's what people knew me for. So when they came around, it was, I never knew like what the project was going to be. I didn't really know how to tackle that best to help my clients. I just didn't know. I gave them what they were asking for, and I didn't necessarily give them what they needed.
Got it. So I suppose from immediately enrolling, like take me through, what you've experienced and what the journey has looked like in like the last year since being in the program.
Yeah. So I guess some of the biggest things that I took away from the program would be I was really good at managing my time, and we were just talking before we started, Patrick, about I've gotten off of that a little bit, but I got much better at managing my time. I was efficient with projects, and then I think probably one of the biggest things I learned, probably two. There's two huge things I learned. One was understanding what my clients' needs were, like what their goals were, and then how I fit into making those goals actually happen. So getting them from their starting point to where they need to be, and like how I bridge that gap. And then two, learning what actually appeals, like what message resonates with those potential clients, and like how to actually reach out to them. Because something I never knew how to do before starting the program was how to reach out to clients. I didn't know who I was reaching out to. I didn't know what was the best tactics for it. I didn't know what message to say. And all of those things were solved when I started the program. And it took me, it took a lot of work for the first month to really get those first calls to start coming in and to get the clients from it. And I think it was almost exactly a month to the day from starting the program that I got my first project. And that first project was, I think, double price wise on what my typical project was. So that was a huge aha moment, I guess. Like that was a big stepping stone for me to see like, okay, the effort that I'm putting in from this program and what I'm learning and what Patrick has taught me is actually working. And then just being able to take those and keep going with it kind of helped me to like scale my projects a bit and get more predictable with clients.
Nice. If we were to like compare, let's say December last year, or maybe like, let's say October last year with October this year,
Mm-hmm.
and we're looking at you as a business model, like mechanically, what has changed? What are you doing differently, say like last October to this October? What on a day-to-day basis, like how does the business model operate differently?
Well, I guess like I said before, I didn't know where my projects were coming from, so I was working on whatever current project I had at the time, and just kind of hoping that there was going to be someone needing my work afterwards for another project. So there was a lot of ups and downs in the actual workload. The prices were all over the board, and then but as far as like how my day to day went, it was basically come in, check emails. respond to whatever fires, put out whatever fires were in those emails from clients, whatever they're asking for, and then just doing whatever design work I could. Or like if I had free time, that free time was spent trying to come up with something to put on Instagram, or like change my website, or like basically questioning myself, like, do I need to rebrand or whatever? Just trying to figure out whatever I needed to change about myself, and had no idea what I was doing or why I was doing it. Now, fast forward a year to October of this year, I have an understanding of who my audience is. I know what, like across the board, generally what they're typically all looking for. What are the steps to get them to? So like particularly for me, like I said, it's packaged food and beverage companies. So I know that a lot of the people I'm working with are probably just starting out. They just have an idea, or they've worked on a recipe for a product, but they've never gotten a product into stores, so they have no idea what that process is like. So I know now how to actually get them into stores, or like teach them to get themselves into stores, and I know how my business fits into that process for them. So for me, like the example would be designing their initial branding, probably, which is not usually the first selling point, but like designing packaging so that it sells, putting together sales sheets, putting together pitch decks, and then just generally teaching them. I've put together my own little program, but teaching them what they need to know and what they need to say, and like how to reach out to stores to get their products on the shelves. So knowing how to bridge that gap has become crucial for my business model, because it really directs what my message is and like who I'm actually reaching out to. So now that's what I guess I would say is the huge difference between year one and year two is understanding all of those things. And my day to day has been directed around those. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it sounds like to me, and like this is ultimately where most people in the program do really well, is the fact that you are still a designer, but it's what you do in your offer that's not design, that additional 10% that creates such a multiplier of value, because you're sitting there and instead of saying, how do I deliver great design work? It's like, yeah, how do I deliver great design work? But how do I get that to design work to do something really impactful in the business? And do you feel like that's really what's allowed you to increase your average project
For
value?
sure. Yeah, because like one of the points I think that you've made in the program is that your clients don't look at design the same way that you do. Like as a designer, like I very much admire good design work, and I feel like there's a value in just good design work, but our prospective clients don't really understand that, or they don't know, or they just don't appreciate good design. What they're looking for is how to make money. So if we can figure out how to get them to be able to make more money with their own business using our skills, that's I think where we provide, as designers, where we provide the most value. And that was one of the biggest things that I like took away from the program, and that's things that I've actually seen start to work. And then I've become more of I guess I want to take a step back too and speak about like how I before was not really doing any, I wasn't working with any specific audience or specific industry. And once I kind of realized like where I maybe had some more knowledge and like figured out, just basically learned or chose which direction to go. Now I've become an expert in that area, and I'm teaching people, and I don't even own a food business, but I'm teaching them how to get their products into stores outside of just being a designer. And that's made a huge difference as well.
Nice. Yeah, it's a really good answer. So, and this kind of leads into the next part, but like, take us through like some of the results that you've seen through implementing the change of thinking and strategy. Like, take us through, like, have your average project values increased? Like, what kind of consistencies and calls do you experience through the outreach? Like, what are the kind of results that you've seen that have changed between, this year and last?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll talk about what has changed as far as like the KPIs and stuff to begin. So obviously when I started the program, I wasn't doing any of this. Like I wasn't doing any of my own outreach. So that was pretty easy to beat 0 as a KPI. But as far as expectations go, yeah, exactly. As far as expectations go, anyways, after that first month, because it got to be frustrating after like 3 or 4 weeks. I was doing stuff every day and not getting the results that I expected. So that first month, I think the project that I ended up getting was I think it was a $4,000 project. And it took roughly 100, well, I think it took about 10 calls, but to get those 10 calls, I think it took almost, I'm just kind of pulling numbers. I think it was around 200 like messages, which meant reaching out to like just starting in contact with lots of people. So and from someone who had not done any of that before, I kind of expected that like, okay, I'm going to reach out to 10 people today. Probably 5 of them are going to respond to me. 3 or 4 of them are going to book a call, and I'm going to get the project right away. That just didn't work out that way. So the expectations were high to start, but taking a step forward now to like 3 or 4 months after that, now I was getting about, I think 10 calls booked a month. Yeah, it was around there, about 10 calls booked a month. 2 or 3 of them were turning into projects of various sizes, but then I forget what the numbers were to get to those 10 calls. I think I had maybe message conversations with maybe about 100 people or so. But whatever it was, I knew what my KPIs were, and that was in like I knew what was working and like what percentage of it was working. So something that you taught was just like you could just dial up those levers that we needed, to get to the certain amount of messages, to get the certain amount of calls, exactly, to get the projects booked. I don't remember exactly what the percentages were off the top of my head now. I'd have to kind of go back and look again. But
yeah, no, the project just like a really like good point to a lot of people is that the most important part, especially initially, is really, and I'm sure you see this, it's just developing the habit of consistently outreaching. And then once, and I'm sure you felt this, but like once, and most people do, and this is what I feel as well, but the minute that you start to see the relationship between, if I connect with this many people, I get roughly this many conversations going, this many calls and this many sales. And like, do you feel like the minute that you understood those relationships, but that's where the real control comes from. Like from that point, it's very hard to lose control of the business, right?
Exactly. Yep. And it's almost like part of your message is we're always changing and we're always improving our sales process and everything that we're doing within our own business. But once we got to a certain point where we're like, okay, now I know that I've gotten this one project off of this amount of calls, this amount of messages, this amount of contacts. Now I knew that like it was not going to get any lower than that. It was only going to go up. So like I did what I could to like keep improving on each of those steps to get more calls or more messages, more calls, and then more clients from those calls. But I knew that like there's my predictability right there, because now I know each month maybe it's going to be an average of this at least. So it's you just kind of use that as it's a motivator, but it's also just like a reassurance, especially going from where I was before, not knowing like where the next project was going to come from. And when you're a freelance designer, like working for yourself, needing to make your own income, that can be scary at times. So it was a huge reassurance for me to be able to do that. And going back to, you'd asked about project price too. So before I started the program, my average project price was probably around $1,000. I mean, I had gotten some projects that I think my biggest project was maybe like $8,000 or $10,000. But I had a lot of projects that were under $1,000 each. And that's really hard to do that from month to month, because you got to have a lot of projects to make whatever you need. And now my average project is about $4,000. And I'm getting, I don't know if I would say frequently, but like it's not uncommon for me to get a project of 10,000 or more. I've had a handful of $8,000 projects. I've had, I think my biggest project to date now is about 18,000.
Wow.
So, but just considering what I do and the people that I work with, it's hard to get much higher than that. So like those are really good numbers, and they weren't. It's not that I would not see those numbers before. Like I wouldn't see that high of a project, or that I couldn't. But it was much less likely because the clients were less frequent. But like the same projects, like a packaging design, for example, before starting the program, I was doing for maybe $500, and now I'm doing a packaging project for $3,000 or $4,000 for one product.
And it's fundamentally you're doing the same stuff, right? It's really just the right person, the right opportunity, but then it's also the knowledge that goes around the context of the environment it goes in, I suppose.
Exactly. It's understanding like what the value is of that packaging design for the client, because before I'm thinking, okay, timing wise, I know that maybe it's going to take me enough time that like it's only worth $500, or I've convinced myself that like no one's going to want to pay more than $500 to do this, especially if they're just starting out. Well, once I figured out what the value is of a packaging design and someone who knows how to sell products through packaging, and what the result is going to be for them, is going to be way more than $4,000. I'll tell you that. So just being able to get that message across made it much easier to sell projects at that price.
Nice. So take me through, like, how has this changed the way that you look at your business moving forwards?
I guess I've always wanted to scale up my business and make it into a small agency of 8 to 10 people or so. So what has changed is knowing that it's possible. Just because knowing that like what I have to do to get there, I know the steps along the way. I just need to do them. So like I know like how many projects I need to have each month and at what prices to be able to start hiring a team. To have them start doing things to take work away from me that I'm doing to scale up. And I'm talking in circles, I feel like, but hopefully people are understanding that like the point I'm making is that having my predictability in my business has made it so much easier to envision and picture how this is actually going to scale up into that, into whatever, what my goal is.
Nice.
Hopefully that answers, yeah.
Yeah, they were good answers and nice and in depth and detail. So yeah, Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to answer those questions.
Yeah, it was nice chatting again with you.